You think love is pure? It isn't. It's a transaction dressed as poetry, a contract written in the invisible ink of your childhood wounds. And every time you kiss someone, you're signing away another piece of yourself. Freud, in his shadowy labyrinth of the human psyche, unearthed truths so uncomfortable that we have spent the last century trying to politely ignore them. He spoke of primal drives, of the ego's fragile dance with the id, of the Oedipal drama that plays out in the nursery and echoes through a lifetime. But perhaps his darkest truth, the one that lingers like a phantom limb long after a relationship has been severed, is this: every kiss is a contract, an unspoken, often unconscious, and brutally binding agreement. Consider the first spark of attraction. It feels electric, doesn't it? A mysterious pull, a sense of destiny. But Freud, with his unflinching gaze, would tell you that this spark is rarely about the other person in their totality. It is a flicker ignited by your own unmet needs, your own buried desires, your own infantile longings seeking a ghostly echo in another. She laughs at your clumsy joke. It feels wonderful. But beneath the surface of that simple act lies a silent clause. Validate me. Make me feel witty. Soothe the ancient wound of feeling inadequate. He opens the door for you. How chivalrous. But the unspoken fine print reads, allow me to feel like a protector. Let me perform the masculine role that society has etched into my bones. Don't challenge my need to provide. These are the initial terms, scrawled in the invisible ink of the unconscious. Every shared moment, every act of affection, every vulnerability offered is a further clause added to the contract. You share a secret, the unspoken agreement. Hold this carefully. Do not betray my trust, for that would reopen old scars of abandonment. You offer a compliment, the hidden expectation. Reflect this admiration back to me. Mirror my own fragile self-image. There's a chilling little tale whispered in Viennese cafes at the turn of the last century. A story they say Freud himself found morbidly fascinating. It tells of shadow brokers who dealt not in money or goods, but in the unspoken desires of the human heart. For a price, they would facilitate the silent contracts between lovers. A longing glance across a crowded ballroom? A shadow broker would ensure it was met with reciprocal interest, binding the two souls with invisible threads of expectation. But the price was always steep, paid in future resentments and the slow erosion of authentic selfhood as each party strived to fulfill the terms of a deal they never consciously made. Modern attachment theory, while softening some of Freud's harsher edges, inadvertently confirms his core insight. Studies in the last few years, 2023 to 2024 meta-analyses on romantic expectations, consistently show that relationship satisfaction is less about the objective qualities of a partner and more about the degree to which they fulfill our internalized attachment scripts. The unconscious blueprints for love and intimacy formed in our earliest childhood experiences. We are not choosing partners. We are casting actors in a lifelong performance of our deepest emotional needs. The wedding vows, those seemingly sacred pronouncements, are merely the formal ratification of countless prior unspoken agreements. To have and to hold translates, on a deeper level, to be the steady anchor against my fear of chaos. For richer, for poorer, really means share the burden of my anxieties about security and status. Every promise is a commitment to fulfill a role, to uphold a set of expectations that neither party may fully understand. And what happens when the terms of the contract are broken? The pain is not just the loss of the person. It is the shattering of the unspoken agreement. The anger is the fury of a deal gone sour. The resentment is the slow burn of feeling cheated, of having paid installments of your soul for a promise that was never kept. Consider the man who silently expects his partner to be his emotional caretaker, to anticipate his moods, to soothe his insecurities. He may never voice this expectation, but every sigh, every withdrawn silence is a demand for fulfillment. When she inevitably fails to meet this impossible standard, he feels betrayed, even though no explicit promise was ever broken. The contract was written in the language of the unconscious, a language filled with infantile needs and unrealistic desires. So, when you next lean in for a kiss, that seemingly spontaneous act of affection, pause for a moment and listen to the silence that surrounds it. What unspoken promises are being exchanged? What invisible ink is being used to write the terms of this intimate contract? And are you truly willing to pay the price that will inevitably be demanded? Or are you, like most of us, blindly signing on the dotted line with a heart full of hope and a mind blissfully unaware of the debt you are incurring? Here's a bitter little joke for you. What's the difference between a lover and an archaeologist? The archaeologist at least knows they're digging up bones from a previous civilization. The lover thinks they've discovered a new world, when all they're doing is excavating a tomb. You are never, ever in a relationship with just one person. That is a romantic delusion of the highest order. The moment you pledge your heart to another, you are unwittingly entering into a complex and crowded entanglement with every person who has ever wounded them, every figure who has ever left a psychic scar. You are in a relationship with the ghost of her hypercritical father, the phantom of his clingy mother, the spectral residue of their first love, and the whole host of minor ghouls and goblins from their past. The bed is always crowded. This is the grim cornerstone of the Freudian confessionary, transference. A clean, clinical word for a messy, soul-staining haunting. It is the unconscious process by which you take all the unresolved feelings, the toxic longings, the primal rage you felt towards a figure from your past, most often a parent, and you plaster it all over the unsuspecting face of your partner. Her quietness is not just quietness. It becomes a direct echo of your mother's disapproving silence. His forgetfulness is not just a simple oversight. It is a reenactment of your father's emotional distance. You are not arguing with the person in front of you about taking out the trash. You are screaming at a ghost from 30 years ago for not loving you enough. And the most grotesque part of this psychodrama? You have no idea you are doing it. You believe your rage is righteous, your pain is present tense. You are a puppet in a play you wrote in your own nursery. There is a piece of grim folklore from the old shtetls of Eastern Europe, a tale of a specific kind of dybbuk. This wasn't a spirit that possessed a person, but one that possessed a relationship. It was the soul of an unresolved family conflict, a father's betrayal, a mother's suffocation that would latch onto a young couple. It would lie dormant, feeding on their happiness, until it found the perfect moment. Then, it would whisper the old poisons into their ears. It would orchestrate arguments that were perfect mirror images of the original trauma. The couple, believing they were fighting about money or fidelity, were in fact just a stage, a vessel for a generation-old wound to bleed all over again. We call it getting triggered now. How quaint. We've domesticated the haunting, but the mechanism is the same. A 2025 study from the Tavistock Clinic in London, a place that still takes these dark dynamics seriously, used biometric feedback to monitor couples during therapy. They found something astonishing. When a man was criticized by his wife for being unreliable, his heart rate variability, his skin's electrical response, his very physiological signature of stress, was a near-perfect match to his response when he was asked to recall his distant and emotionally unavailable father. His body could not tell the difference between the woman he loved and the ghost that had haunted him his entire life. So you become an unwitting exorcist. You try to heal your partner's wounds, but you can't see them. You're fighting shadows. You try to reason with their irrational fears, not realizing you are negotiating with the ghost of a parent who taught them the world was unsafe. It is like trying to convince a person their house isn't on fire when they are the only one who can feel the heat and smell the smoke from a blaze that happened decades ago. And here lies the faintest, most fragile sliver of hope. It is the moment of lucid introspection, the moment in the heat of a familiar, circular argument, where you pause and ask the forbidden question, who am I really angry at right now? Is it truly her, for her carelessness? Or is it the ghost of a mother who made you feel invisible? Is it him, for his anger? Or is it the phantom of a father whose rage terrified you into submission? To see the ghost is not to banish it, oh no. It's far too strong for that. But it is to separate it for a fleeting second from the person you love. It's to realize you are not fighting your partner. You are fighting their demon. And worse, they are fighting yours. You are two deeply haunted people, locked in a room, mistaking the rattling of your own ancestral chains for the faults of the other. Your intimacy is just a seance gone wrong. So, the next time you find yourself in that same tired, circular fight, the one that leaves you both feeling exhausted and misunderstood, I want you to do something. In the peak of your fury, take a good, hard look at the person you are screaming at. Look into their eyes. Is it truly them you are trying to hurt? Or are you just trying, finally, to land a punch on a ghost? There is an ancient, salt-stained legend of a mariner cursed by a forgotten sea god. The curse was not one of storms or sea monsters, but something far more insidious. The god took the mariner's compass, the one thing he trusted to guide him home, and re-enchanted it. From that day forward, the needle no longer pointed north. It pointed directly, unerringly, toward the heart of the very same hurricane that had first wrecked his ship and drowned his crew. The mariner, desperate for new lands, would set sail on calm seas under clear skies. But his trusted compass would slowly, subtly turn him back. He was always drawn, against his will and better judgment, toward the beautiful, swirling, and utterly familiar vortex of his own destruction. That cursed compass is your heart. This is perhaps the most grotesque and counterintuitive of Freud's confessions. He called it Wiederholungszwang, the repetition compulsion. It is the grim, unconscious, and overpowering drive within us not to seek pleasure, but to return to the scene of our original psychic crime. We do not seek partners who will heal us. We seek partners who will wound us in precisely the same way we were first wounded as children. Love is not a journey forward to a safe harbor. It is a compulsive pilgrimage back to your first crucifixion, in the desperate, insane hope that this time you can change the outcome. Think about your type, and the magnetic pull you feel toward a certain kind of person. If your father was a cold, distant man, a man whose approval you could never quite earn, you will find yourself inexplicably drawn to emotionally unavailable partners. Their distance will not feel like a red flag. It will feel like home. It will feel like a challenge. The faint, intoxicating promise that this time, you can make the distant one turn and see you. You mistake the ache of your childhood for the thrill of the chase. If your mother was a volatile, engulfing storm of emotion, you will find stable, calm people unbearably boring. You will be irresistibly attracted to passionate, chaotic, and unpredictable souls. The constant anxiety they produce in you will not register as a warning. It will register as excitement. You have confused the feeling of being alive with the feeling of being in danger, because in your childhood, they were one and the same. Freud was baffled by this. It defied his own pleasure principle. Why would a psyche actively seek out pain? His terrible conclusion was that it is a deranged attempt at mastery. It is the ego's doomed strategy to time travel. By perfectly recreating the original traumatic dynamic, you believe on an unconscious level that you now have another chance to fix it. If you can make the aloof woman love you, you are retroactively earning your father's love. If you can tame the wild, chaotic man, you are finally controlling your mother's terrifying moods. You are not building a future with a new person. You are trying to repair a broken past with a human stand-in. Modern data, in its cold, algorithmic way, has proven the old Viennese doctor right. A chilling 2024 study from the Max Planck Institute used predictive modeling on the data of millions of dating app profiles. They found that users who describe their parents in terms like critical or neglectful were over 90% more likely to repeatedly initiate contact and pursue relationships with partners whose own profiles and communication styles exhibited those exact traits. Their conscious minds typed "seeking warmth and kindness" into the search bar, while their unconscious psyche relentlessly scrolled, looking for the familiar shape of their own wound. And here, in this tragic repeating cycle, is the most excruciating glimmer of hope. It is the dawning of awareness. It is the moment when the cursed mariner, feeling the familiar pull of the compass, looks not at the promise of the horizon, but down at the needle itself and whispers, "Ah, there it is again, the storm." This awareness does not, in itself, break the curse. The pull is too strong, the enchantment too deep. You will likely sail into the storm anyway, but you will do so with a new, terrible lucidity. You are no longer just a victim of the pattern. You are a conscious observer of it. You can watch yourself being drawn in, feel the old, familiar ache, and name it for what it is. Not love, but a repetition. This tiny, precious gap between the compulsion and your observation of it is the first sign that the curse can, one day, be understood. And what can be understood can eventually be defied. So I ask you this riddle. What is your type? Describe it. The exact combination of wit, or looks, or melancholy, or strength that you find irresistible. Hold that image in your mind. Now, what if I told you that your type is just a romantic name for the architecture of your original prison cell? And you have spent your entire life as a devoted pilgrim, searching for the one person who carries the perfectly shaped key to lock you back inside. Let me whisper a confession so vile, so contrary to every love song and wedding vow, that it is rarely spoken above the breath, even to oneself in the dead of night. We have been talking about repeating our wounds, about being drawn back to the scene of the crime. We have been proceeding under the hopeful assumption that this is a mistake, an unconscious error we are trying to fix. But the darkest truth is this: it is not a mistake. It is a preference. We have, through some twisted psychic alchemy, learned to eroticize the wound itself. The pain is not an unfortunate byproduct of the relationship. It is the main attraction. You are not addicted to the person. You are addicted to the specific flavor of suffering they provide. This is the abyss where love and self-destruction finally become indistinguishable. You choose the emotionally distant partner not in the hope they will one day open up, but because their very distance creates a delicious, melancholic ache that you have learned to interpret as depth. You are in love with the poetry of your own longing. You choose the chaotic, unpredictable partner, not in the hope they will one day find peace, but because the cortisol and adrenaline cocktail of their drama is the only thing that makes you feel intensely alive. You are in love with the beautiful anxiety they create. It is the alchemy of the damned. You have taken the raw lead of your childhood trauma, and instead of turning it to gold, you have learned to find the lead itself beautiful. You polish it. You praise its heft, its dark luster. You tell yourself, this is real. This is profound. Simple happiness, by contrast, feels flimsy, naive, and boring. You have developed a connoisseur's palate for a very specific vintage of poison. In his later, more troubling work, Freud stumbled upon this darkness. He called it Thanatos, the death drive. He postulated that alongside Eros, the drive for life, connection, creation, there exists in us an equal and opposite pull towards dissolution, towards decay, towards the quiet, inorganic peace of oblivion. It is the secret, nihilistic whisper in the soul that wants to see the whole beautiful, striving, painful mess of life come crashing down. And where better to stage this magnificent, intimate implosion than in a relationship? You choose the perfect partner to help you sabotage yourself. Their flaws are not flaws. They are the tools you will use to engineer your own beautiful ruin. There is a legend, likely apocryphal, about a flower called the sorrow bloom. They say it grows only on the sites of great heartbreak, a battlefield, a lover's grave, a betrayed home. The flower itself is said to be achingly beautiful, its petals the color of a twilight bruise. But its nectar is a slow, sweet poison. It doesn't kill you quickly. It fills you with a state of ecstatic melancholy, a sense of profound and tragic significance. Lovers in the legend would seek it out, knowing the cost, because the beautiful sadness it produced felt more real and more intense than mere happiness. They willingly poisoned themselves for the sake of a more exquisite feeling. We do this every day. Modern neuroscience, peering into the skull's dark theater, is beginning to map this curse. A 2025 neuroaesthetics study showed that for individuals with histories of attachment trauma, the brains reacted to images of their type, pictures that evoked feelings of unpredictability or emotional distance in a bizarre way. It wasn't just the dopamine centers of reward that lit up, as they do with love. It was also the amygdala and the insular cortex, the ancient centers of fear and pain. The brain had literally fused the wiring for love and danger. The threat signal was the reward signal. So you are not broken. You are perfectly calibrated. You are a finely tuned instrument designed to seek out and resonate with a very specific frequency of pain. And the hope, if you can even call it that, is almost too faint to see. It is the hope of the conscious alchemist. It is the moment you can look at the cup of poison your lover offers you, admire its dark, shimmering beauty, appreciate the exquisite craftsmanship of the goblet, and not drink. It is the artist's path. To recognize that you are drawn to the storm, not because you hope to survive it, but because you find the spectacle of the churning clouds and the crashing waves to be the most sublime beauty you have ever known. And perhaps you can learn to paint the storm, or write the poem about it, instead of sailing your ship directly into its heart for the 1000th time. You can appreciate the machinery of your own beautiful dark desires without being its slave. So be honest, just for a moment, in the silent confessional of your own mind. When you look back at your most passionate, most meaningful relationships, what do you truly remember with more fondness? The quiet moments of stable peace, or the magnificent, terrifying, and breathtaking spectacle of the breaking point? You know, after all the books, all the therapy, all the long nights spent staring at the ceiling with a glass of something strong in your hand, you start to see the pattern. You hear the same stories from different mouths, the same tragedies dressed in different clothes. Everyone is on a quest. A noble, desperate, and utterly doomed quest to find the one person who will finally heal them. We have talked about the unspoken contracts, the ghosts in the bed, the compulsion to repeat the wound, and the dark alchemy that turns that pain into desire. All of these are symptoms of this one great, underlying sickness, the belief that you are broken and that love is the cure. This is the foundational lie of our entire romantic culture, from fairy tales to the billion-dollar self-help industry. And it is the lie that guarantees your misery. Freud, in his most honest and pessimistic moments, knew there was no cure. The goal of his talking cure, his psychoanalysis, was never to create a happy, perfectly adjusted human. He considered that a laughable American fantasy. His goal was far more modest and far more profound, to transform hysterical misery into common unhappiness. To take your unique, dramatic, life-destroying neurosis and turn it into a manageable, conscious, everyday sadness. To make you an honest neurotic. And here, in this bleak diagnosis, lies the final, strange, and breathtaking liberation. The freedom comes when you give up. It comes in the quiet, devastating moment when you finally accept that you will never be fixed. Your psyche is not a fixer-upper. It is a house with a cracked foundation from your childhood, with strange wiring that shorts out when you're stressed, with a few locked rooms you may never have the key for, and with a persistent draft that whispers the names of old ghosts. You will not gut renovate this house. You will live in it until you die. The moment you accept this, truly accept it in your bones, is the moment you stop demanding that your partner be your contractor, your interior designer, your electrician, and your priest. You fire them from a job they never applied for and were never qualified to do. And in the same breath, you tender your own resignation. You stop trying to fix their house. You finally see that their own strange, beautiful, broken-down mansion is their business, not yours. All the contracts are voided. The performances cease. The compulsion to repeat the wound loses its frantic energy because you no longer believe in a different outcome. The dark alchemy stops because you no longer need the poison to feel alive. The quiet dignity of your own accepted reality is enough. What is left when all of that is gone? Silence. And in that silence, Itamas, you can finally see the person in front of you for the first time. Not as a savior, not as a villain, not as a ghost, not as a project, but as another inmate in the same asylum. Another soul living in their own unique and haunted house. And a new kind of intimacy becomes possible. It is not the feverish, desperate intimacy of two broken halves trying to become whole. It is the sober, respectful intimacy of two sovereign, flawed individuals choosing to be neighbors. It is the ability to say, without words, I see the ghosts that haunt you. I see the rooms you keep locked. I see the foundation of your pain. It is not my job to exorcise, unlock, or fix it. I can only sit here in my own haunted house and respect the integrity of yours. This is the intimate asylum of two. It is a relationship built not on the fantasy of a cure, but on the mutual recognition of the disease. The energy that was once poured into the frantic, doomed project of healing can now be sublimated into something far more real. Compassion. Understanding, a shared, ironic gallows humor, a quiet, profound respect for the other's struggle. You can finally love them not for their potential to be better, but for the magnificent, tragic, and complete reality of who they are right now. This is the liberation that comes when you stop chasing what destroys you. The thing that destroys you is not another person. It is the fantasy of salvation. When you let go of that fantasy, the world becomes a sadder, colder, and infinitely more beautiful place. So, here is the last contract, the only one that matters, offered not to a lover, but to yourself. Will you continue to chase the phantom of the perfect, healed self, a frantic, exhausting race that will always lead you back to ruin? Or will you finally turn, face the beautiful, tragic, and unchangeable architecture of your own soul, and learn to live with grace inside its walls?